This is the L. Ron Hubbard experience. This is a similar experience, I feel like, to what Scientologists get from, I don't know what their version of church is, but I mean, this just goes to show you, when you think, oh, Scientology's crazy, like, yeah, look at everything else L. Ron Hubbard has ever done in his career, and that's pretty much what you're going to get.
It's just a sci-fi, glibbity-glop, blah, 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 nonsense shit show.
There's also a plan to use a teleportation device to teleport a nuclear bomb back to the Cyclo homeworld.
Cavemen in fighter jets fighting aliens.
L. Ron Hubbard makes movies as well as he creates religions. Like shit.
Thumbs up, let's do this. L. Ron Hubbard. Welcome back, everybody. It's Just Play It. We are about to dive into something disastrous this week.
I was about to say good day, but it's not a good day.
No.
It is far from a good day.
This is quite the opposite of last week. This is quite not a lovely day. This is a dark day for the Just Play It podcast, because we are diving headfirst into notoriously bad territory here. But before we get there, we got to introduce ourselves. I am Jimmy Crack Corn. I am Jimmy Popcorn. I'm the king of corn. I am the king of the corn popcorn patch, baby. And sitting across from me is my best friend.
Yes, sir. I'm Nick, Chief Corn Doggy Dog himself, the dog of corn. I got the corn in me, the dog in me, and that's just the way it's going to be today. Today we are diving in
the dog.
Okay, well, we need to make a new intro for that.
If you're a music producer and you're listening, we need help.
If you're anybody and you're listening, we need help, please. You probably do too.
If you're a psychiatrist, we need help. L. Ron Hubbard, if you can hear me, I need mental health help.
If L. Ron Hubbard can hear me, fuck you. All right, so today we are diving into what is a notoriously, James, this is a bomb, this is a flop. Cue the music. We're going into 2000's Battlefield Earth.
Battlefield.
Flopbuster. Time to flop. Worse than LeBron James.
Exciting news for listeners. We have crescented these type of movies with a new title. Please welcome
The 40/40 Offender.
Baby, this is a flop. This is a bomb. This is something that has below a 40 average critical rating and has lost minimum 40% of its budget. But I will say this, here's a little sneak peek for next year. I think we gotta shift gears on the bomb. We gotta make it opposite 40. We gotta say it only made 40% of its budget back.
So it lost 60?
It lost 60. I think that's a little bit, that's more of a bomb to me. As true listeners know, we started out with Stealth as our first bomb. Now that was the standard. It lost 40% of its budget. That just kind of became the game plan from here on out. Going forward, next season, if you only make 40% of your budget or less, that's our definition of a bomb going forward. Stealth, you're grandfathered in as a bomb because you were terrible.
You deserved it.
I will say this, based on my memory, I think this is in that lower 40. That's a little hint. Now, we haven't actually done a bomb in a minute.
Wait,
I think our last bomb.
James, I have an idea here real quick. I just want to hit you with it.
Yeah.
So it's when you're losing the 6, right? You're like, there's the 4, there's the 60/40, there's the 4 and the 6. So do we call these ones a sex offender? It's a 6 offender.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Yeah, you can cut that in post. It was a bad joke. I just wanted a 6 offender joke.
No, it's got to stay in.
Feel free to cut that one.
No, I like it. What we got here is a 40/40 offender. We will have at least one of these per season. Last season was inadvertently The Adventures of Pluto Nash. That had a 7% return, I believe, going off memory for the budget and the box office.
And it flopped at a 30.2% on the review.
Yeah, that is well in that 40/40 rule. Yeah, it's been a minute since we've done a bomb. The last bomb we actually did was Cruel, and we've then implemented the Cruel rule because we need to check multiple sources of the budget, because that one, for whatever reason, had a bunch of different answers for what the budget was. So no problem there for this one, because going forward, new tradition, 40/40 offenders, they deserve both of us to guess the budget and the return. So this movie is so bad, it bombs so hard, it's going to take two numbnuts. It's going to take a pop, and it's going to take a corn dog to take a stab at what the budget was and what the return was. In real time, we will be looking this up.
All right, James, let's start looking into this movie. So Battlefield Earth from 2000, directed by Roger Christian, which is not interesting, but what is interesting is that we have a writing credit from L. Ron Hubbard. Now, if that name sounds familiar and you're not sure why, this is the father of Scientology. This is the guy who wrote Dianetics, which is the foundation for Scientology. So if you're like, wow, Scientology is weird and crazy, you kind of got an idea of what this movie's going to be.
Yeah, Dianetics, I believe, was pre-Scientology, and it was supposed to be like a science approach to mental health, but it's more pseudoscience.
It's not more pseudoscience, it is pseudoscience.
It is literally pseudoscience, and pseudoscience by definition means not science.
Yes, it's like if you made up science.
Yeah, there's no scientific evidence to back any of this up.
No.
That's what we're dealing with.
It's a science fiction writer making a self-help book is essentially what happened, and it caught on. And then L. Ron Hubbard was the guy, he's like Creed in The Office, where he's like, I should start, starting a cult's a lot of fun. That's pretty much what L. Ron Hubbard did. He's like, this has such a following, I should just parlay it into starting a cult and make a lot of money. You know what's wild to me, though? There was a time in Hollywood in the 90s, pretty much at 2000, like when this movie came out, where there was this whole stigma of like, you do not badmouth Scientology.
Oh, it's still around.
It's still around, but people used to think they held so much.
Like Leah Remini.
Yeah.
From The King of Queens. She's all outspoken about it, and she spilled all the beans about how they would come after you if you spoke badly about the quote unquote church / quote unquote religion of Scientology.
Not quote unquote cult of Scientology. But yeah, no, absolutely. But now you could pretty much shit on it with impunity because no one's coming after you. But that was the thought back in the day.
L. Ron Hubbard is the whack job king of Scientology. This movie has writing credits to him because it's based off a novel he wrote. Because before he invented a quote unquote religion, he was a science fiction writer. So one, a little sus there. I mean, aren't you a little suspicious that someone who all of a sudden makes a religion in the 1950s, who was also a science fiction writer, who wrote fiction, or are you just buying it?
If I'm lost enough in my life, I guess you'll buy anything. I think about that all the time with people who join cults. I'm like, I know they pick and target weak people, but man, you'd have to be really lost.
That is exactly what the Church of Scientology does. They literally target vulnerable and insecure idiots, essentially. Sorry to put it frankly.
What are actors and celebrities?
I'll touch upon that right now. I was looking up, why are all these actors following Scientology? And it's essentially because Scientology reflects their mission. So Scientology, whether it started out as a practical joke or just a way to avoid taxes, they were looking at how do we get money and further our profits and not get taxed on it. They thought, hey, let's prey on actors who are also looking for the same stuff. Tom Cruise, John Travolta, couple guys that credit Scientology to their coincidental success at the time they joined the Church of Scientology. Mm-hmm. Tom Cruise said his dyslexia was cured by Scientology. John Travolta credits Scientology for landing him his first big audition. And it is Scientology that furthered his career and furthered his profits. And basically it's just like, oh, you help me make money, I'll throw money your way. Oh, you're making more money. Yep, you're welcome. Blah, 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 blah. Here's Glibglorb. Here's Zorb. Here's that. Believe this. Unlock this achievement within your biology and your physical manifest. Oh, you can now do this because you paid us more money. It's just like, what the are we doing?
I want to say that's why I believe it to have been so popular amongst that crowd is there's no, a lot of religions are like, you got to be humble. You got to be a good person. You have to sacrifice. And Scientology is like, as long as you keep giving us money, you just raise in status within our church. And like, if I'm an actor who has hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that whole being humble crap. I don't want to go and sacrifice. I want a church that tells me, hey, the more money you give me, the better person you are. So it naturally feeds into a group of people who are just driven by ego. Like, yeah, I'm great. I have money. Here's money. Now I'm even better. Who lives life that way? These people.
What a toxic environment to be in and grow up in. Some of these guys are born into the cult and they're misled and they're preyed upon from this cult. The Scientology organization basically just gaslights its followers. They suffer from Stockholm syndrome, and anything you do, it's like their textbooks, their scripture, quote unquote. New versions come out each year, just like college textbooks. And so the textbook that had one sentence added the last year has now dropped in 95% in value of resale to the library. And they say, oh no, you got to get the new version. It's this amount of money, get that. If you have a mental breakdown, you need to search for help within the Scientology group. Do not go to other outlets for mental health help. And if you say what we're doing here is wrong, we will release websites that will attack you. We will go after you. Do not come after us. Kiflam.
If it looks like a cult and sounds like a cult and smells like a cult, it's a cult.
If the GTA 5 side mission taught me anything, it's Scientology is a Ponzi scheme and is only after profit and is gaslighting its followers. And ultimately, to win the side mission, you need to murder the people, and then you'll get all your money back that you have paid to unlock all these quote unquote abilities and achievements that you can now physically and mentally and emotionally manifest.
This is not us telling you to murder anybody. Please do not do that. Just leave Scientology if you're a part of it. Please.
Hail Zorp and Kiflam. That's all I have to say about that.
All right, James, let's get back to the movie. Yeah, let's do it.
It credits L. Ron Hubbard as a writer because it is based on the novel that he wrote. Again, science fiction. But there are two other screenwriters credited. So Corey Mandel and J.D. Shapiro, who, shockingly, don't have a lot of writing credits. I feel like this movie murdered their writing careers. I did watch a pretty interesting interview with one of the other screenwriters, Corey Mandel. I'll kind of touch upon that a little bit later. But the idea is based on an L. Ron Hubbard story rooted in Scientology, and it had a couple patsy screenwriters carry out the mission. And I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into what went wrong with the making of this movie. This movie stars John Travolta, as we covered, Forrest Whitaker, and Barry Pepper.
Barry Pepper was a new name for me.
So Barry Pepper, besides having two names that are named after a food, he's kind of like a 6, 7, 8 on the call sheet guy in movies such as Saving Private Ryan, Behind Enemy Lines. I believe he was in Flags of Our Fathers.
So he got work.
Yeah, he's in True Grit, the Maze Runner series. So he stayed pretty busy, and this did not kill his career. But like I said, kind of 6, 7, 8 on the call sheet.
I'm seeing here Green Mile. Good for him.
A couple other guys that I didn't really recognize. One or two familiar faces. I think the most successful of these actors is Forrest Whitaker, and I guess John Travolta, even though he did a terrible job in this movie. But that's besides the point. We've given you the basics, and we have laid out that we will both be guessing the budget and the return of this movie that is notoriously known for being horrible, aka one of the worst movies ever made. Not only are we guessing the budget, but at the end of this, just like all good flopbuster jobs, we are going to decide, did it deserve to critically flop or not?
So here's what I'm going to do, James. I'm going to read the log line, and then I think you want to set the stage on a few things before we hit plot talk.
Read the log line, I'll jump in.
Log line. It's the year 3000 AD, and the Earth is lost to the alien race of Cyclos. Humanity is enslaved by these gold-thirsty tyrants who are unaware that their man animals are about to ignite the rebellion of a lifetime. That's a mouthful.
I have to say something before we get started.
Crack it.
This movie will have three things. This movie will have three things in abundance. Tilted camera angles, characters explaining what's going on as the scene is happening,
Our favorite plot device.
and maniacal laughs. Okay, the stage has been set. We can now enter plot talk. Let's go! Plot talk.
All right, so we're going to open up to instructions.
Instructions!
pretty much, James.
I love instructions. My favorite.
So we're in the year 3000.
Very limited.
Yeah.
Very limited instructions. Well, this movie's called Battlefield Earth, but there is a little subtitle that is also attached to the title card. It says The Saga of the Year 3000.
I did notice that.
So I'm thinking, oh my God, we're about to go through a crazy saga of this year. I'm ready. We're now given instructions very minimally, and it says man is endangered. And I think that's it. I think it's essentially that the human race is endangered. That's the only instructions we get. So we're like, okay, cool. I'll let it pass.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So we're in the year 3000. Earth is pretty much a desolate wasteland. And I'm like, Mad Max? No, not Mad Max. Earth is overrun by aliens. We get this opening scene where there's this basically hunter-gatherer tribe, almost like caveman-ish.
100% caveman.
Man has devolved into caveman. They have returned to monkey. And
return to monkey.
They're talking about these gods. They're very superstitious. Like the gods are angry with us, and they like just man has devolved. Like take year 2000, and then from year 2000 to 3000, we've gone back to like 2000 BC. You know, we're way back in it,
and it's confusing because all of the humans they seem like they can speak English just fine. Language has been passed on through generations fine.
Not just language, metaphors.
Oh my God. Yeah. I wrote that. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. We're on the same page. So yeah, like sayings and metaphors as in like the grass is greener on the other side or a piece of cake. All of these have stood the test of time.
I never saw cake. Never saw cake in this movie.
These cavemen have probably never had a piece of cake because they're eating raw rats and styrofoam, but they have all these modern day sayings, but they don't know what escalators are. The world building right now is off to a rough start. What's also off to a rough start is the stereotypes. 2 minutes in, we get one of the great tropes of cinema. We get a no in slow motion from the main character. He is not diegetically saying no because he's clearly in frame in slow motion, not saying no. But there is ADR added in later of him screaming no because his dad died. His dad is super dead.
Have I ever showed you a picture of my dead dad? You've got to see it. He's super dead.
Super dead.
As in his girlfriend tells him the gods took your father overnight. And we get our first no.
We're back to like Greek mythology. The gods are the planets and the stars.
Yeah.
Now our main character here is Johnny Goodboy Tyler. So this is Barry Pepper.
Mr. Pepper.
He rejects. They're like, our destiny. He's like, well, I don't believe in destiny. I'm going to go out and I don't know what his plan was, to be honest, because like these cyclos, these aliens have infested the earth and enslaved humans. And he's like, I don't believe in any of this. And I'm like, what? I don't understand his whole like rejection of the world.
Well, don't worry. And we understand all of this because this begins the first point of explanation to the audience.
It sure does.
In our first expository scene. They're literally in a cave. So we're getting the like, okay, we get it. These are cavemen. These are cave women. These are cave people. And there's this old man patriarch figure that explains why the gods left.
The gods used to live in this world. They watched over and protected man, but man grew selfish and cruel. So the gods left, allowing the demons to descend from the sky. We must dedicate our lives to pleasing the gods, so that one day they will come back and drive away the demons. That is our fate.
So we're explained why we are where we are from this old man.
This was the runner-up religion to Scientology. Like L. Ron Hubbard was like, if Scientology doesn't catch on, this whole like people being bad, the demons are coming. That's the backup plan.
And Johnny's like, nah, I don't believe any of this crap. Whatever I see, I believe, which is
Yeah.
literally not believing. But you do
It's
think
the
that.
opposite. So he's like, I'm leaving the tribe. He leaves his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's like, you think I can't come with you? I'm equipped. I'm a woman. He's like, I know you're better than most men, which is why I need you to stay here, look after the tribe. Don't worry, this whole like romance B plot will come into play 3/4 of the movie later
as a plot device.
But he heads off. He runs across this mini golf course that's been abandoned for 1,000 years with like fake dinosaurs. And he's like, "Oh, these are the monsters we were scared of. They're fake. Ha ha ha." But then he runs up against these 2 nomad hunters, and like humans aren't working together. Like they're broken off into tribes.
There's different tribes, there's different factions. So we're back to street gangs of the caveman days. And speaking of street gangs, we got Kim Coates from Sons of Anarchy. You might know him as Tig from SOA. So I did recognize him right away. He plays Carlo, and he's also with a fat guy named Rock.
And they're weirdos.
Okay, I need to go on a tangent about cavemen and caveman stereotypes. Again.
This is going to be like the old Geico commercials.
Yeah, dude. Oh my God. So these cave people, these regressed humans speak English fine. They seem very civilized within their own tribes. They are putting women on the same plane. So we're like, okay, humans have not totally regressed, but then we get the stereotypes of like the grunts, like, ooh, 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 ah, ah, It's like, okay, what are we doing?
I'll give it away. Later in the movie, when they're like, they do their rebellion, as they say in the log line, they start like doing like this, like, rah, 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 rah. And I'm
like Planet of the Apes stuff.
Yeah. I'm like, what? It's like chants. I'm like, what? Once you use the phrase piece of cake, you no longer chant grunts. Like that's
yeah.
There's no overlap on the Venn diagram. It doesn't exist.
There's no Venn. The other gripe I have, this is a nitpick, it's the clothes. Like they're obviously super manufactured. It just looks like someone Googled caveman costume, ordered it on Amazon, and then it came in. The pattern, the material looks like it's sewn together and just kind of patch stitched together, but the armholes are perfect. The seams are perfect. They have belts, they have pockets. It's just, what are we doing?
So the 2 nomads do your favorite thing, James. They explain a little more.
I was going to say that.
Wait a minute. We were hunting. We have no time to show your gods because we have no food. We need food. We must hunt.
They're all hanging out in this mall. I'm still not 100% sure what the goal of this, of Johnny was.
He said, show me these gods, and then we eat. So basically, they showed him the city of Denver, which we figure out where we are, or some neighboring city. We're in Colorado somewhere. And then so they start going off about all these made up things about Earth 1,000 years ago, saying people like rode on chariots through the golden arches and then food magically appeared. So we're thinking, okay, they're obviously talking about a McDonald's drive-through. Haha, hilarious. They're calling out these statues outside. They say these are the frozen ones, the ones that turned their backs on the gods. They didn't listen, so now they're turned to stone. And again, I'm just thinking these guys can speak English. They know modern phrases such as the grass is greener on the other side, but they don't know what a drive-through is. There's a lot of inconsistencies of their education, and I don't get it.
Something else to bring up, we're going to see throughout the movie, all the imprisoned humans, or as the Cyclos call them, man animals. If you know man animals, you could just call them humans. You don't call them man animals. Just say humans.
I have the same exact note. These Cyclos know everything about humanity except what they're actually called.
Yeah. But the fun thing is, every man animal human is just a good old white American. And I never saw a child. There's no children.
There is a black guy. There's a light-skinned black guy in there.
Oh, you're right. There is. He comes up later and he's got kind of.
There's any speaking lines, but he's there. He's like a featured background player.
He kind of just shows up at the end.
Randomly in this very secluded, abandoned mall, randomly, like this is super abandoned. This is like Walking Dead pilot episode. No one's in the city of Atlanta, Georgia, in The Walking Dead. Rick Grimes comes in on a horse and just explores the city. The same phenomenon. Kim Coates, Barry Pepper, and Rock, they all are just shooting the shit, eating lunch in this abandoned mall. Out of nowhere, John Travolta as the alien cyclo race shows up and fucks up the party.
Just goes to town.
Please explain what happens here. I will jump in when we get to the stupid ass decision that Rock does.
Yeah, so the cyclos come in, and we get these like slow motion shots. It's a little disorienting. It happens a lot in the movie where there's these like chase scenes between the cyclos. I always want to call them cyclones. It's so close. The cyclos and the humans, where there's like this chase scene and it's a slow motion running shot, and they're getting shot at by, I don't know if they're like energy weapons. I never really explain.
I have a couple notes here. It seems like they're like almost a stun gun, but they also blow things backwards. It's like almost like a force push weapon. But
it might be Star Trek-ish, where it's like you could set your phaser to kill or to stun.
Just like Star Wars, they have the little circle ray that goes out. That's the stun one. And then the laser beam is the lethal one.
Yeah.
But these guns were confusing because at some points they were pushing things back. And then there's another shot where a sign just like evaporates. So I thought, oh, did it just make that thing vanish? What is the property here?
Not explained.
But I think it's Kim Coates. I think it's Carlo. I think he catches a stun gun thing to the chest. And then so Barry Pepper, who is Johnny, I thought they were calling him Greenie, but it's Johnny Good Boy, like Johnny Be Good.
I mean, that's credited. They might call him Greenie. I don't know.
I think they called him Greenie because he was talking about the grass being greener on the other side. But yes, Johnny Good Boy Tyler, who has the only one with 3 names in this movie.
That's just his credited name. Yeah.
So Kim Coates gets shot, and then all of a sudden, everything's green. It's like the last scene of the Hulk all over again.
A lot of color filters. A lot of color filters. In this
just
movie.
a green gel filter is over the camera.
Like I thought the cyclos were blue until until the last 15 minutes of the movie. It's just a blue filter on the camera.
Yeah. So the scene is green. Johnny and Rock are running away from these attackers who appear to be these beasts that we've been hearing about from the lore of the cavemen stories, the feared enemy. We don't get a full understanding of what they look like. They just know they're under attack. Johnny he's a fit guy. He runs a lot. He runs in slow motion a lot in this movie. And Rock is not. Rock is a fat guy. So Johnny is running down a couple escalators, some stairs. Rock obviously can't keep up. So this fat guy decides to not go down the stairs, but to instead jump off a 2nd-story building, and shocker, shatters his knees.
So have you ever been at a mall and it has like the upper walkway and you're like standing there, you're like, could I make this jump? Could I jump down to the 1st floor of this mall? It might be a guy thing where you think you could do it. And I'm like, oh man, if push came to shove, I don't know what situation it would be, but could I make this 18-foot jump down into the lower section of the mall onto this hard ass tile floor?
I thought that.
Yeah, we all have. It's a common thing. Rock thought he could do it, and Rock summarily snaps his femurs. He just hits the ground and just collapses. He's just done for.
Rock breaks his knees, landing on his fat ass body on this hard tile floor, thinking that was a great idea. This was the moment I knew this was going to take a lot of endurance to get through this movie, because as soon as this attack happens, and again, we're at tilted camera. The camera's at a 30-degree angle at all times throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
Rarely is it at 0 degrees. It is 30 this way. It's negative 30 this way. It's 30 this way. It's back to 30 this way. So we're at Dutch angles, green filters. The music cuts out. So we have this like silence when Rock decides to jump off the 2nd story and breaks the shit out of his legs. And I just laughed out loud and thought, oh man, this is going to take a long time to get through this movie.
This is bullshit. I don't want to be in that shitty movie.
Dude, it's bad. So Rock gets executed on the spot. They're like, your legs are broken. You're done. They didn't even have to do that. They could have just left him with broken legs down here.
Rip Rock.
Johnny and Carlo, they're captured, transported to a slave camp in what used to be Denver in the ruins, which is where the Cyclos have their base of operations. And I was thinking to myself, is this a call to like the Denver airport theory? Like, is this where the Cyclos live? Like under the Denver airport?
Oh yeah.
Come on. But no, they have a massive dome that protects them from Earth's atmosphere. Because just like War of the Worlds, which I think is like where L. Ron Hubbard pretty much stole most of this idea from.
Like very common things are very toxic to these alien species, like air.
It's like water and signs.
It's like water and signs. It's like a common flu in War of the Worlds. And in this one, it's our atmosphere. So did they bring their own air and made their own domed society in Denver?
Dude, honestly, this is my thought when people are like, we need to populate Mars. And I'm like, how do we bring oxygen there? Like, we can't do that.
You got to hit up the Cyclos from the planet Cyclo.
Apparently, they got that. I do need to bring up this hilarious moment where they're brought there. One guy tries to escape.
It's Carlo.
And one of the stun phaser's guns, he gets shot in the back while trying to run away. But watch this scene. It may be some of the worst CGI. It's just this white glowing line that goes across the screen, hits him in the back.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even make like a effect when it makes contact with his body. It just kind of gets to his body, and then he like flails his arm and falls down. I would have loved to have been on set to watch the direction. There's directors like run, fall. And he just like, eh. They're like, good, it'll look good in post. At this camp, we do meet John Travolta's character. This is Turl, I think. Turl. Yeah, Turl.
For the folks at home, it's Terl.
Turl. He's the Cyclo security chief of Earth. And then he has his right-hand man, his deputy, which is Kerr. This is Forrest Whitaker's character.
Yeah. Kerr
and Turl.
Turl.
So through a course of, I don't understand the cyclopolitics of everything, but Turl has been assigned to Earth. He hates the Earth outpost. He does not want to be here. He hates the man animals, which are the humans. He doesn't want to be here. But he is stuck here indefinitely. There's like this politician who's like, yeah, you're going to get a promotion to stay here for 50 more cycles.
Got him.
Apparently something happened with Turl and the senator's daughter, which has got him this assignment. Where the senator daughter is never explained. We don't know who the senator is, what happened with his daughter, but
no,
it's not good.
The only thing we're gathering from this scene is that Cyclos conquer planets, they pillage them, and they mine, and they take all the resources from the planets, and then I guess they just say, peace out, bitches, we got what we wanted. Apparently, Earth is very ugly and very undesirable, and John Travolta's character wants off. But this council that comes in via teleportation from the planet Cyclo says,
oh, thank you, sir. I don't know if I could have kept my sanity to be here another 5 cycles.
We've decided to keep you here for another 50 cycles. With endless options for renewal. With endless options for renewal. With endless options for renewal.
They do this maniacal laugh. John Travolta and Forrest Whitaker and other Cyclos before this have already done a bunch of maniacal laughs. John Travolta does maniacal laughs towards these poor people, aka the man animals, because he also gets treated poorly from his superiors, who also maniacally laugh at him when they dick him over. And at this point, I'm thinking this whole species is like a bunch of Dr. Evils. Pinky up to the mouth. Ha 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 ha.
I wrote down, for people who hate humans, they act a lot like humans. They use certain phrases that are like human phrases, like, I'll see you in hell. And I'm like, do you have like a hell and heaven belief system? Like, what's happening here?
It was confusing. I mean, I think I got it later in the movie, but right off the rip, it's very confusing because I'm thinking, why are they speaking English?
Okay, yeah, we're going to talk about this here.
So later on, it's discovered that, oh, it's one of those things where we can just understand them. Just like when you watch the first example that came to my mind was the animated Mulan movie.
Yes.
They're obviously speaking Mandarin. The movie's made in America and they're going to speak English. they're going to act in English and the movie's going to be in English. That's just that. We just get it. So they don't explain that. So for a movie that does a lot of explaining, doesn't explain how we understand the Cyclos right off the rip because they just start speaking English.
Yeah. But at a certain point, our main character learns Cyclo. So he's communicating with them, but everybody's using English. So some characters can understand each other while others can't, but we're always speaking English. And it's
Very confusing.
It's awful. But our main guy, Turl, John Travolta's character, he likes Johnny. Johnny's resourceful. He's got some spunk to him. The main goal of the Cyclos is they're mining gold. Where I'm not quite sure what gold's used for. I mean, I know it's a precious metal. It's
on Earth. Is it also precious in the universe? Apparently so.
Well, it's very useful. Like it's used in a lot of electronics. Like it's a very conductive. Like it's a good metal to be used. Same with like platinum, things like that. It's valuable in its own state, like for jewelry, but it actually has like practical applications. So I'm like okay, maybe they use it in spaceship parts and things of that nature.
It can be used to build stuff. I get it. Yeah.
Turl says, I like this guy. I want to use him for... So they don't have the humans mining the gold. In fact, it's like a joke among the Cyclos. They're like, humans mining gold? That's crazy. I'm like, why do you have like slave prisoners if they're not mining the gold for you?
The bread and butter of ancient slaves is building pyramids and mining.
Yeah. And they're like, these guys can't mine gold like we do. It's like, well, why do you have these prisoners then? What do they do?
What are they doing on the campus?
If they're not mining gold, what use are they for you? But he's going to make Johnny do it. And they have this machine that can basically make you learn at warp speed. So they can like inject all of their knowledge and the knowledge of the history of the universe into people by putting them in this chair and like streaming it into their eyeballs. I don't know. It's just a weird thing.
Super confusing because John Travolta, Forrest Whitaker, all the ugly ass Cyclos who they almost look like they were inspired by the character of Taserface from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
They do.
They all have like ugly ass faces, long ass locks for hair.
They have very human facial hair too. Like John Travolta just has a goatee, like a human goatee that's trimmed the whole time. I'm like, do they grow facial hair like we do? They also all have very impressive bulges. I don't know if you caught that in their armor. Their armor has like massive bulges. I don't know if these guys are just packing heat. They're just laying pipe, but my goodness, I was impressed.
Well, I didn't notice that, but it took me up until an hour and 27 minutes into the movie to notice that all of their eyebrows grow long and they curl around this like disc that's mounted on their temples. And then they drape down the head that gets mixed into their hair locks.
Yes.
So I noticed that an hour and a half in and thought, okay, these ugly ass disgusting Cyclos just got way more disgusting because they have Fu Manchu status of eyebrow hair.
Dude, it's wild.
Okay, so just talking about the visuals of the Cyclos, it just looks like cosplay of a Star Trek character. I drew a lot of similarities to The Fifth Element, and I think the major difference between The Fifth Element and this movie is the taking yourself seriously part. I really think they were trying to take themselves seriously in this movie, whereas The Fifth Element was like, no, we're campy, we're fun, we know this is ridiculous, and we're going to have a guy named Zorg, and we're going to have a big death ball named Evil, and we know this is just all kind of like a big sci-fi romp.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie was just poor execution on the character design, the dialogue, everything. Like they didn't even put a cent into the effort part of it. Uh-oh. I see you're pulling. Oh, wow. Okay. No, that is a bulge.
Look at that bulge, dude.
Okay. I want everyone at home.
Look at that bulge.
Listening. The chief corn dog himself just pulled up a screenshot from the 2000 movie Battlefield Earth. JT is packing a sausage. It's actually bigger than Forrest Whitaker's, which is shocking.
It's bigger than Forrest Whitaker's, which I thought, I was a little disappointed by.
You want to know why I didn't go straight to the groin? It's because they have big, bulgy, ugly-ass hands that were obviously prosthetics and just were super distracting.
Well, the hands also looked like they were very floppy, so I was always wondering how they were so, like, they had very good finger dexterity for their weapons.
No, and I was going to say, they don't show a lot of shots of them shooting the gun up close. So going back to this knowledge machine, which I think it's literally called, Turl is looking at Johnny. He says, you got grit, you got spunk. I want you to communicate with me. I am going to send you into this isolated room to learn our language. There is a hologram of a different alien species that pops up, and this instructor is an alien. He's different from the Cyclos. He's different from humans. He looks like an actual alien. Cyclos look like very human, like we touched upon, cosplaying as Star Trek characters.
Yeah, it looks like if a human had sex with Predator.
I wrote down that it looked like they were inspired by Predator and Taserface, but in like a Galaxy Quest spoof way. Yeah. So this instructor also
Galaxy Quest spoof
speaks English, but this is another thing that pisses me off, because the instructor, who's a hologram of a different alien species, says, I'm going to teach you how to learn Cyclo. But he doesn't do that because there's a whole machine that just blasts the knowledge into Johnny's brain. The only thing that this hologram alien is a plot device to further educate the audience that the Cyclos are bad, because he explains how his race was enslaved and they were superior and they took over his home planet, yada, yada. It's a cheap expository device to provide further evidence that the Cyclos are bad. And if their ugly ass features, maniacal laughs, one-dimension personalities, and generic evil plan of enslaving and pillaging didn't already tell you this information, don't worry. Hopefully this hologram scene will help sell it to you. And then the knowledge machine blasts everything that Johnny needs to know about the Cyclos in a matter of minutes.
I don't know why he explained it to him. He could have just blasted it into his face, but
he didn't instruct anything. He didn't teach him anything. He just said, I got enslaved. Here's a knowledge blast to the dome.
So Johnny and his crew continue to be defiant, and Turl is now just more impressed. He's like, oh, a human who's defiant. This is fun. So he brings him to the library, and he's like, read as many books as you want. Now, I don't know. If I had someone who was really defiant, I wouldn't empower them as much as I could. Turl wants Johnny to like be the head of the slaves and help him mine gold for his own personal reasons. But Johnny reads the Declaration of Independence, gets all, like, oh yeah, independence. He basically is like a future 3000 AD George Washington at this point. And the Cyclos are the British. I'm actually just drawing this comparison now that I'm thinking about it. But Turl explains to him that, like, oh, we defeated all of humanity's advanced machines and weaponry in only 9 minutes. But you're basically setting up Johnny to be George Washington. So now the idea is that Turl's going to give Johnny all of this information, so now he can properly mine the gold and speak their language. Because up to this point, apparently, they've not been communicating, even though they're both speaking English at each other. So that's what's really confusing, is apparently up to this point, until Johnny got thrown into the learning machine, he hasn't been able to understand Turl. That blew my mind.
They do no work in trying to differentiate that there's two different languages going on.
No.
And they do no editing tricks. They do no signifying edits or anything.
All the editing tricks are done after Johnny knows Cyclo. That's when they're like, oh, Cyclo's actually speaking a different language. But pre that revelation, we just think everyone's speaking English.
So confusing. So wait, and speaking of the learning machine, so it teaches him how to speak Cyclo, but did it also teach him how to read English? Because he starts reading the books in the library.
Dude, that's another thing. Do these people know languages? They're like cavemen, but they speak perfect English. They have our current modern day metaphors.
They're very articulate. They have no problem speaking English. They're not always grunting, but sometimes they grunt.
Dude,
by the way, I just want to mention that the camera is still at a 30-degree angle. at this point.
Always constant 30-degree angles. Let's jump through that. Let's mentally push past that. Turl now trusts Johnny because Johnny can speak Cyclo, and he gives Johnny a party of slaves and a shuttle to go start doing the gold mining. Again, what everybody thought was crazy. Man animals mining gold? That's fucking ridiculous. I don't know why. Why else do you have slaves if it's not to do your manual labor?
And they've obviously done no research on the humans. They claim to know humans, but they don't know that they're called humans. And they don't know that one of our basic things that we did at the start of our society was mine for stuff.
Mining stuff, yeah.
Talk about not watching tape on your opponent.
I'm assuming the Cyclos can also get this like mass information dump. So I don't know why they don't know it. Then Johnny and them tried to ambush Turl. I mean, this happens multiple times throughout the movie. Like they try to escape and ambush, and it always fails. They hold Turl at gunpoint, and then there's this thing where Johnny's like I can't kill you.
No, Johnny has a choice of he can shoot Turl in cold blood and quote unquote end it all right there, or he can not shoot him and whatever. So he does have a decent plan. He does have a decent motivation at this point because he kind of sees it as a short-term gain, long-term loss, because they think, oh, we can execute Turl right here, right now, go start running back to our caves and we're good. But he has bigger things in mind. He's thinking, I won't kill Turl. I'll keep getting resources. We'll keep getting things that we need. I'll keep getting education for my boys. And then we'll just do a whole rebellion.
Fair.
So he has decent motivation here, which is fine.
Except at
what's
this
not fine
point,
is that Turl says, don't even think about trying anything funny because I'll be watching you. I got security cameras. There's a big setup that he always has security cameras up. He records things and he only releases certain footage to his superiors to only show his good parts of his actions versus his bad parts. But here he says, I'll be watching you. These guys go on a Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They go to Fort Knox. They go to Washington, D.C.
Wait, hold on. Enter our love interest from the first scene that he has now captured and placed an explosive collar around her neck.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, if you try anything funny, her neck's going to explode. And you're like, where did she come from?
Yeah. Well, the horse that he rode out of the tribe originally comes back and she's like, my guy Johnny's not good. I gotta go rescue his ass. Also, when his horse originally got shot at 10 minutes into the movie, that's when we get our second no in slow motion.
Now, I do have to bring up one thing from this scene. He talks about how he was in the academy. He talks about this earlier, how he was like graduated top of his class. He shouldn't be on Earth duty. But he goes like, I was top of my class in like marksman shooting. So don't you try to run. I can hit someone from like 1,000 yards away. He whips out his gun and he starts shooting the legs off of cows. He starts fucking slaughtering these cows in a field like 1,000 yards away. And like the visuals of like a cow standing there and then just getting its arm shot off. No blood. Just arm detaches from body. Just
pops clean off.
He does a behind the back shot and everybody's like, oh my God, stop the humanity. Like,
and even worse, these are Highland cows, like Scottish cows with the long hair.
Yeah.
So they're extra adorable.
They're my favorite kind of cows.
Having a heyday.
Anyway.
So like we said, they go all over the place. They go to DC, they go to Library of Congress. And I was thinking, did they fly all the way to DC to literally look at radiation maps? Because the main character, Johnny, explains as they roll into DC, a casual 1,000+ mile trip. He says,
this great village was the capital for all of our tribes. This is where our people's history was buried.
When the Cyclos attacked Earth, they sent out flying gas drones. Our ancestors must have made it out into these remote radiated areas, and the only reason they survived was because radiation has a lethal reaction with the Cyclos breathing gas. Radiation is also poisonous for humans. If we don't take back our planet, the last of humanity becomes extinct.
Stop explaining things to me, dude. Tell the story with the biggest visual advantage you have, which is a movie.
He whips out a map that has like the radiation like symbols on it, like the 3-pronged like like you'd
The
see
yellow
in
circle with the 3 black trapezoid. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah. He's like, these must be the radiation zones. It's like pulls out a map and it like focuses on it. You're like, my God. But he knows where Fort Knox is, and so they're mining in Kentucky near Fort Knox.
His plan is to not mine for the gold because he learned through reading that they have a bunch of gold stashed at Fort Knox, which is in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
So casual trip to Kentucky, they go pillage some gold from Fort Knox.
Yeah, there's also a whole underground military base with Harrier jets, weapons, fuel, the whole deal.
There's a flight simulator.
There's a flight simulator. Everything you need for a rebellion is just underground at Fort Knox.
Or what they call a learning machine.
So they deliver the first shipment of gold to Turl, which is in gold bars, right? Because it's Fort Knox. It's not like gold ore. And they're like, here's the gold bars. And Turl's like, why is it in bars? And Johnny's like, oh, just raw ore would be not suitable.
I thought you would like it better.
Yeah, they're like, for a high-ranking cyclo such as yourself, regular ore wouldn't be good. Turl just accepts this. He's like, oh, well, if you have time to smelt down the gold ore, then I expect the gold in double time. It's like they clearly don't have the equipment to smelt the gold. What do you think is happening, Turl?
This movie sucks.
Turl, in the meantime, is like stashing away the gold for himself. He's not going to deliver it to the home planet because he has this whole thing he's going to do where he's like going to stash the gold himself and use it as a bargaining chip to get out of this Earth detail that he's stuck on. Because I assume he banged a senator's daughter. We don't know. I don't understand psychopolitics.
My bang with the senator's daughter.
So now revolution starts. So the plan has come.
And the plan's been explained to us by Johnny.
Based on what I've read about cyclosecurity, if we were to stage a revolt, only using weapons that they don't perceive as any real threat, they're just gonna herd us together and throw us back in the cages. But we're gonna stage this revolt inside the dome. So the cyclos are gonna have to come inside the city to round us up. And that is when we blow the dome. Carlo's gonna blow the dome.
I'm gonna blow the dome.
You're gonna blow the dome.
Piece of cake. Piece of cake, piece of cake, piece of cake.
So long story short, we're going to use nukes.
Okay, but what you have to remember is that as soon as we blow the dome, boom, stage 2 alarm.
What is that?
Thousands of gas drones and troops are going to be teleported down here. We can't fight against that.
What's the point?
The point is we don't let it get to stage 2. We're going to destroy their home planet before it happens.
Their home planet?
Their home planet. Of course, we're going to need some extra supplies before we can do that.
So our first stop is a radiation bomb storage bunker. Now, is everyone clear?
So if you feel like you're ever at a loss, they're going to literally explain it the entire time, and you'll still be confused.
So we have nuclear weapons that they found in Fort Knox. We have Harrier jets, which we found in Fort Knox. Simulators.
No, apparently they went to a bomb storage in Texas. So now they're going to Texas. So it's at this point, it's pretty clear that Turl is not watching them. Which was
Johnny
really
has full reign of the nation.
Which is
full
really
reign
confusing
North
to me.
America.
We're going from Denver to DC, a pit stop in Fort Knox. They go back to Denver, give the gold bars to Turl. He says, why are they in gold bars? He's like, don't fucking worry about it. And then they go to Texas and get bombs.
Not just bombs, nuclear warheads.
These guys are not being supervised.
So after about we get a
dude.
training montage. So we have a little montage, and after a week, we're ready to launch the attack.
Yeah, no, they're like, can you learn how to fly these machines with this learning machine in a week? And I'm like, okay, piece of cake, all these words, how to form sentences, yet you still call flight simulators learning machines, and you still use cavemen words to it's just like, stop trying to sell to me that you are primitive. Obviously you're not, because you can form sentences and you got blasted with the knowledge machine with their language, and you can read now. I don't believe that you're a caveman. Stop the act.
But my issue is not with Johnny, it's the rest of them. They go from like riding horses and having cave pictures to tell stories to
Top Gun,
flying Harriers. Dude, it's nuts. So they get their Harriers, they launch. I mean, they're basically engaged in aerial combat. Like you said, they Top Gun it. Carlo's mission is basically a suicide mission. He needs to break their dome so that the Earth's atmosphere can enter the Cyclo base. Are the Cyclos not out in the world when they go to like Fort Knox? Like when Turl's out at Fort Knox, picking up
Turl's
the gold.
Later, he's at Fort Knox. But whenever the humans are inside the protective Cyclo society, the domed society, they wear those nose things so that they can breathe their air. And whenever the Cyclos are in the Earth's atmosphere, they have that ugly ass nose filter with the rat tails that drape down. It's like a breathing apparatus, basically.
Gotcha.
But speaking of rat tails, again, these Cyclos are fucking stupid because they think humans like to eat rats because they see video footage of Johnny desperately munching on a raw rat, and they say that must be the man animal's favorite food. It's like, bitch, you don't know the first thing about humans. Stop pretending like you do.
They clearly love pieces of cake. Basically, the big rebellion happens. There's a few funny things that happened. Carlo flies a Cyclo shuttle into the dome to break it. It doesn't break it all the way. And so then he's like stuck at the top of the dome, looks to his left, looks to his right. On his left, there's a bunch of canisters that say fuel on the canister. On the right, there's a bunch of canisters that say explosives on it, which I just love that.
Before we predictively go where we're going to go with this, I do need to point out that the extras, the loop group, also explain what's happening, because Carlos crashes into the roof, and then we're thinking, all right, here we go. He's taking out the dome. Piece of cake, just like he's been saying this whole time. Piece of cake, no worries, I got this.
Piece of cake, piece of cake, piece of cake, piece of cake.
And even the extras on the ground, they look up and say, oh no, it's only cracked.
Why is it coming down? It's not working. It's only cracked.
Stop explaining this movie to me. I have eyes.
Also, can we discuss the VFX of the glass cracking?
Sure.
It cracks. The cracks are all like curved. I'm like, glass doesn't crack like that.
And this dome is like 100,000 frames that frame individual square glasses. So it's not like one big bulbous dome where one crack can shatter it all. It's like if Carlo came in with a jet and took out 4 panels, those 4 panels would be done. So he hits the explosives, he ignites the explosives, and the entire thing, the structurally sound roof, just caves in.
No one said the Cyclos were good engineers, James.
Apparently, it's like the Death Star. You just need to hit one good spot, and the entire thing will blow up. There was a Galen Urso designing the dome of the Cyclos in Denver. He had a plan to take it out with one hit.
He's like, that'll never happen. No one's ever going to crash into the dome. There's also a plan to use a teleportation device to teleport a nuclear bomb back to the Cyclo homeworld, which they do successfully do. And when it explodes, this one nuclear bomb on this planet, it just ignites the entire Cyclo planet. So apparently the radiation from a nuclear bomb just ignites their entire homeworld. Cool.
So, and this is some other side character doing a sacrifice play. Carlo just did a sacrifice play. Did you shed a tear, Nick?
No.
Did you shed any tears? Did you care?
No,
Did you care?
I was confused. I was confused the whole time. You know what's confusing to me? If nuclear radiation is so detrimental to the Cyclos, how did they take Earth in the first place? Did we not fire a couple nukes at them when all hope was lost?
Apparently not. We only had 9 minutes.
Long story short, because I want to get done with this fucking plot, is Cyclos are defeated. Turl survives, but he's now imprisoned at Fort Knox. They're like, you're a bargaining chip in case any more Cyclos come for you. You know, you're a bargaining chip because you're the person who cost them their entire civilization. Kerr, the piece of shit first deputy, Forrest Whitaker's character, he just joins the humans. He has no convictions whatsoever. He's like, yeah, these guys are in charge now. I'm totally for it. I'm the last Cyclo. And we're off to rebuild civilization. And we basically end on, the scene from Indiana Jones where you're like in Fort Knox and you like zoom out with all these gold bars and you're like, this is where he's trapped. Boom. Directed by dickhead Roger Christian.
Well, they also missed a good opportunity to throw in a leverage line with the neck collar, because how he defeats Turl is he throws that neck collar that was on his girlfriend on his arm and then blows it up and blows his arm off. Again, just clean off. There's no blood.
Dude, these cyclists lose appendages like nobody's business. There's a point where Forrest Whitaker gets his hand blown off. No blood or anything. It's just he's now without a hand. John Travolta's character just blows his hand off, and it's like, hey, why'd you do that?
Wait, when did that happen?
After Kerr had that whole plan to take the gold for himself, and then God, I'm just bringing up stuff we didn't even talk about, where Turl kills the bartender and like holds up his head, like, you were going to tell this guy, and Kerr's like, oh, I'm sorry, and then Turl takes out his blaster, blasts off Kerr's hand.
Honestly, I don't even remember that. But they missed an opportunity. So Turl this whole time kept saying the word leverage, like, oh, a female getting leverage over me? I would never see the day for that. Oh, you getting a man animal getting leverage over me? And the man and Johnny's like, why are you doing this? And he's like, leverage. So they missed an opportunity for Johnny to throw the neck collar on Turl and say, you know, who's got the leverage now? Or I got leverage on you because you have a literal explosive collar on.
I think they may have kind of mentioned that
at the very end when he says, you're in jail at Fort Knox. Why are you keeping me alive? And then they say leverage. And I thought, 2 minutes too late. You could have had some sick ass line right before you murked his ass. But whatever. Anyway, that's plot talk for Battlefield Earth, directed by fuckface Roger Christian. Sorry, I didn't get your name right the first time.
Didn't deserve it.
Okay, Nick, do you have any nitpicks? Nitpicks?
God, I've so many.
I have a ton. I'm going to list them off like bullet points. I'm just going to go. The title, Battlefield Earth. The battle is about 15 minutes at the end. They cross country travel for their own side mission shenanigans. They go to DC, they go to Texas, and they go to Kentucky and back to Denver, where this movie apparently takes place. Makes no sense. They don't battle the entire Earth. The battle is only 15 minutes. It's stupid. The subtitle of A Saga of the Year 3000, it's giving me Age of Ultron vibes. There was no Age of Ultron. The Age of Ultron was about 2 weeks in universe. This is also about the same amount of time. This is maybe a month. This is no Saga of the Year 3000. I think they just want to throw that on to sound cool. John Travolta wants the gold.
I want the gold. Give me the gold.
It could be a resourceful element, but it's not anything
But
clever.
we don't know.
Yeah, no, they don't explain what they want with the gold. It sounds like it's like for
I want the gold. Give me the gold.
I want to know what the gold is.
It sounds like we're getting Leprechaun, honestly, because they don't explain why they want gold. If they gave us a hint of why they wanted it for engineering purposes, for spiritual purposes, maybe I would give them a little bit of a pass on that. But from what I'm gathering, Turl and his higher-ups, it seems like they're just like Scientologists and they want to progress their profits. They have no interest in anything except collecting gold because apparently it's valuable on Earth.
That's a good call out.
Apparently it's valuable in the whole universe. They do throw out the word credits. It seems like gold equals credits. So I'm thinking, okay, that's a weak ass motivation for the entire evil plan of this movie. You could have did something super interesting like water or oxygen or human blood.
Oxygen fucking kills them, apparently.
Oxygen kills them, but I'm saying you could have did something way more simple and interesting like Mad Max Fury Road. Water is the highest form of currency in the post-apocalyptic world.
Yes.
These aliens from a different planet are after the gold because apparently it's valuable.
I want to know what the gold is.
Which is stupid, in my opinion.
They are just large space leprechauns now that I think about it.
The cavemen grunts, yet they speak English fine. That's a nitpick for me. The cavemen clothes I touched upon. That's a nitpick for me. Humans are now very effective at firing guns and flying fighter jets, When a couple weeks ago, they didn't even know what escalators were. Lastly, the jet fuel, the fact that fighter jets still work 1,000 years later, the fact that the gasoline, the literal liquid fuel has not regressed into soil and evaporated air, and it's still working fine. The ammunition in the jets still works 1,000 years later. Apparently, everything has been preserved. All hail Zorb, Kif Lam. Those are my nitpicks. What the fuck, Battlefield Earth?
Yeah, but my biggest nitpick was radiation is a pretty big weakness for quote unquote the dominant alien race. They have a lot of like pretty precarious weaknesses. Oxygen, nuclear radiation, things that might exist elsewhere. If you could be defeated by these cavemen, like I don't know how you took over, a galaxy. But here we are.
There's a lot of big talk about why this alien race is superior, yet they are the biggest ignorant imbeciles with one-dimensional motivations I've ever seen.
Couldn't agree more.
Do you have any talking points for Battlefield Earth?
I think we covered them all in our plot talk.
All right. Well, a talking point I'll bring up is just the general history or how this got made or how this was written or how it came to be. I watched a interview with one of the screenwriters, Corey Mandel, and he kind of explained it all of how this went down. So screenwriters, they have agents themselves. So if you write a script, you kind of need a literary agent to sell it to a studio. You can have advisors to kind of say, hey, you should go for this project or you should help this project. You should say yes, you should say no. So Corey Mandel, one of the screenwriters, everyone in his life was saying, don't do this movie, don't do this movie, don't do this movie. Take the meeting, but don't do the movie. He was going to meet with MGM and John Travolta, and they said it's based on an L. Ron Hubbard book. It's going to be ridiculous. Don't do it. Don't take the movie. Don't do it. Don't write it. Do not write this movie. And he does his due diligence. He takes the meeting, meets with John Travolta, meets with MGM. He says, nice to meet you. They're telling him everything he wants to hear, and he wanted to hear it. And he's like, I can't. I just no, thank you. I don't want to do this movie. And they offer him a little bit more money. And John Travolta says, oh, like it's based on the L. Ron Hubbard story, but it's not Scientology. Don't worry about it. We're not going to do Scientology. It's going to be completely different. We're not going to do it literally word for word from the novel. It's supposed to be a big, fun Star Wars type movie. And he's like, okay, no, I won't do it. Offered him more money, blah, blah, blah. He thought about it. He said, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it. I can bite this bullet. I'll write this screenplay and I will take this fat check. I'll do it. So then MGM drops out and then Fox 2000 says, oh, we're going to pick it up. We got this. John Travolta is still attached because John Travolta, like we touched upon, funded $5 million of his own money to get this movie made. Mm-hmm. He's a known Scientologist. This is an L. Ron Hubbard joint, unfortunately. Corey Mandel, days before he's about to submit his screenplay or whatever he's contributing, Fox 2000 drops out and they say, we're not doing it. And funny enough, I didn't recognize, I clocked one of the production companies. I think it was Franchise Pictures. And I thought, wow, that sounds like a phony shell of a company that is not a real company. And that's exactly what it was. It's a financial company. It's not a film production company. So Franchise Pictures apparently picked up the movie, who I believe is a subsidiary of Revolution Studios. And they said, we're doing it. So now there's no real studio attached because you have execs to report to. You have the due process to go through when you go through changes. Now this is just the Wild West, Nick.
Wow.
This is just John Travolta and his producing partner and this financial backing company making this movie. And once you submit a script as a screenwriter, the studio can make whatever changes they want. You have sold the script, and that means they can do what they want. I read somewhere the other screenwriter, J.D. Shapiro, he said that this movie turned out completely opposite of what he had. He didn't have them looking like ugly ass Planet of the Apes, Taserface ass looking predators. He had story, he had depth, he had character development. Apparently, once this bounced around from studio to studio to non-studio, that's where all the changes were made. And this is where the shit show mudslide happened and went downhill from there. Those guys wrote the script. it got handed off to individuals with their own agenda. John Travolta originally was going to play the main character, who was like a 17-year-old kid, which is weird because he's a middle-aged man. And then fast forward, he's now the antagonist alien, and it's the exact result of what you would expect from its journey to the big screen.
None of what you said surprises me.
That's the background of the movie, but the treatment of the movie. Now, I mentioned that there's a lot of tilted angles in this movie, which I learned was the term is Dutch angle. So apparently the Dutch tilt. So the history of this is actually a German movie as part of the German expressionist movement. The Dutch would use this angle extensively, and it started during the World War I. The use of this is to try and give the audience the quote unquote the willies, or communicate that something's not quite right. Now, it's very on brand that this movie uses the Dutch angle throughout the entire movie, because you're thinking something's not quite right with this movie. So at least they used it correctly in that sense.
Good.
This is from Filmmaking 101 article from boards.com. It gives examples of what movies have used it. So positive examples are, funny enough, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, who got a lot of shout outs in Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent as Nicolas Cage's favorite movie.
Yep.
From 1920. Batman from 1960s, Do the Right Thing from 1989, Mission Impossible, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. It says, use sparingly. If you overuse Dutch angles, it'll get boring for you and your audience. Save the technique for when you want to create a specific feeling, not just as something to spice up a shot for no reason. And it says, for example, Battlefield Earth. While it was a commercial and critical failure, it is often described as one of the worst films of all time. Battlefield Earth is a good place to learn about the Dutch angle. Almost every shot is tilted because, according to Roger Christian, he wanted the film to look like a comic book. Now, Nick, did this look like a comic book to you because of the 30-degree angles on the camera?
Anytime you want a movie to look like a comic book, you end up similar to 2003's Hulk. It's a bad idea to try and make a movie look like a comic book. There's a reason that one medium is a comic book and one medium is a film. And honestly, I've never seen a comic book where every pane was a 30-degree tilt.
I know for a fact, whenever there was a slow motion running scene and the green gel light filter over the camera, and the mall scene where Johnny gets shot and he's running through 5 panes of glass in slow motion with the tilted camera angle. There's in the Battlefield Earth finale, he's running through debris in slow motion. And I just knew that the director thought he was in his bag. With these shots.
He was cooking.
My guy, this ain't it. You are not in your bag. You are nowhere near a bag. There's no bag to be had.
He realized he ain't built for this, dude.
He realized he ain't built for this, and he has no bag. He's not cooking. He's not in the kitchen. Sit down. I don't know what you're doing. I almost thought they hired or casted Barry Pepper because they liked the way he ran in slow motion, because he does it a lot.
They looked at him. They're like, your face is going to look really good at a 30-degree tilt.
30-degree tilt, slow motion, debris flying, shit show, background, pre-production, shit show, production, shit show, post-production. That's all I really have.
That's all you need.
Just utter disappointment.
All right, James. Well, let's start wrapping this bad boy up then.
Scientology.
James, we do have one more big thing to do, though. We need the budget guess and the budget and box office reveal for this flop bomb.
Oh, boy. Let's put our brains together like real Scientologists would. And what do you think, just thinking about this movie, what was put into it, the actors in it? The only big name is John Travolta. I'm not sure if Forrest Whitaker is a big name back then, but Oscar winning these days.
Yeah, I'm going to go just knowing the L. Ron Hubbard connections and how much money was available. I got to start at the 9-figure range. So I'm going to go ahead and put my guess in at like 110, 120.
Let's look at the other bomb budgets. So Stealth, 135 million. Cutthroat Island, 98 million. Adventures of Pluto Nash, 100 million. Escape from LA, 50 million. Cruel, 30 or 50
I'm looking at Hulk, which is only 2 years later at 137. So yeah, I'm comfortable in like the 110 million range. It's about where I would stand on the budget. That'd be my guess.
Where's that coming from in your brain? Where's that dollar amount coming from?
CGI, costumes, just overall production costs.
The CGI didn't seem like it was super vast. It did seem like a lot of practical makeup and costumes.
For that, yeah, the backgrounds, the green screens, like
Hulk was all CGI, obviously.
Yeah.
And it wasn't ready.
But I mean, a lot of spaceship scenes, a lot of the ships pulling up, a lot of stuff like that. I just don't think that this was what would I say? An experienced studio. I don't think this was an experienced studio.
What studio?
I think this was some people who wasted a lot of money on this.
As I explained, what studio?
Good point.
I mean, Adventures of Pluto Nash came out 2 years later. It had $100 million budget. I feel like we're safe around that range, right?
I also read, when you were mentioning franchise pictures, I read that they embezzled a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. No, they got in trouble with legally.
They embezzled a ton of money, apparently.
Again, shell company.
My thought is to be on a list, because that's how we chose this movie, right? Is it was on a list of like one of the biggest bombs.
Failures, worst movie, yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, year 2000, I'm sitting in the 9 figures. I'm sitting in the 100 to 110 million.
I think 100 million is safe. It seemed like this was a prototype Avatar almost. Like they thought this was going to be so sick and cinematic and meaningful.
That's a great call. Yeah.
Mining resources from a different planet. So a little bit of similarities with Avatar. Obviously not as good.
They had this little like hippie moment where they're like, you only kill animals for food. And then Turl's like, don't you know humans were like the only race who hunted animals for sport? And they're like, no. It's like, what was that? What was this moment?
All right. So your budget number is what?
105. I'm just going to 105 feels
I'm going to say
safe.
100 mil. So do you want me in the middle? Okay. Just say 103, 102?
I'll come down. I'll meet you at 100. Even 100.
Even 100, just like Pluto Nash.
Yeah.
How about the return? I did drop a hint that it was below the 40%.
So I'm going to say 20 million. I feel like this had enough juice probably to get enough people to the theater once, to get that first wave of people into the theater. And then obviously after that, everybody said like, no, like don't go see it. But like that first wave of people into a big blockbuster with a name like John Travolta has to account for 18 to 20. So I'm going to say 20.
And then if The Adventures of Pluto Nash only brought in 7 million, I think when we talked about that episode, the trailer, I think, didn't do it any justice because people just saw through the bullshit right off the bat and thought this appears to be a dumb comedy for kids, but it's got mature themes and aspects to it. I'm not going to go see this. This sucks. Cutthroat Island, similar budget, 98 million, 10 million return. I don't know why that one failed. This one, the marketing, I didn't look into the trailers. I didn't look into the posters, but you're saying 20 mil?
Yeah.
I'll just agree. I'll keep it at 20 mil. How about that?
I think it had enough star power and oomph to get that like initial wave of audiences on the opening day. And I feel like opening weekend, you're like 15 to 20 for a movie of this size. I'd have to think.
All right. I like our even numbers here. So we are guessing, just play it. The two brains, the corn, the dog, the pop, and the corn. We're thinking this is $100 million budget and that it brought in 20 million. Nick, are you ready for the reveal?
Hit me with that reveal, baby.
Well, we're about to look it up at the same time. Hit your Google machine and let's see what IMDb says about the budget.
Oh.
Well, IMDb says it had an estimated budget of $73 million.
That's a little lower than I thought.
And that it grossed 29.7 worldwide.
Interesting. Okay.
Other outlets like thenumbers.com, they say the budget was $80 million. Okay, well, Wikipedia says $44 million. So what the hell?
Okay, well, let me tell you right now what I'm reading here, which is interesting. The film had a budget of $44 million, but that doesn't count the marketing or franchise pictures embezzlement, which pushed it to the $75 million range.
Okay, that's what we were talking about.
Wow.
This is why we put the cruel rule in effect, because we're getting multiple different answers here. So what the hell, Battlefield Earth?
So it sounds like it's just a mess from top to bottom.
So what we're saying is that this is a wash.
It seems like it. We had the right idea. U.S. gross 20 million, worldwide got to 29 and some change. Again, still a flop, still a bomb, still a bad movie that lost studios money.
And we're not going to take the reported budget and take that for scripture here. If they had extra money thrown into it, that's part of the budget, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So what I'm seeing here is there's the embezzlement, but according to our guy Mandel, our screenwriter, franchise only provided the financing, with the rest of production essentially being handled in-house by the Church of Scientology and Travolta's production company.
Oh my God, we're back to this bullshit.
Removing any real oversight of Travolta and allowing things to start to go off the rails.
Okay, so what is the actual budget of this then at the end of the day?
I don't think the Church of Scientology would ever release those numbers. So
shout out IRS. How are those guys tax exempt, IRS?
Dude, good question. We have to go with the reported 73 and the gross of 30, 29.7. But man, that's generous. I feel like.
Oh, that's right on the money. That is 40%. It's a 40-40 offender classic. But it's still kind of shocking that it had $27 million less than the Adventures of Pluto Nash.
I feel like we have some inflated numbers by the Church of Scientology. I feel like we have some...
No.
I feel like we got some shenanigans going on here.
Scientology shenanigans.
James, I want you to give me your sarcastic selling point here.
All right, I'll hit you with my sarcastic selling point. And this really... my feelings towards this movie, it became clear. It all clicked when I saw the third card on the credits. And it said, based on the novel by L. Ron Hubbard. I had no idea that this was an L. Ron Hubbard story until the credits. So now going into this recording and this podcast, I now understand why. It's just a sci-fi, glibbity glop, scientific, blah, 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 nonsense shit parade. All right, so my sarcastic selling point. I wrote down my notes. I'm so just kerfuffled from this one. I don't know. Cavemen in fighter jets fighting aliens. What the fuck do you want? This is a Geico commercial that's 2 hours long. Fuck off.
I said it's a live-action Prince of Egypt with shitty aliens. Because I really felt like Johnny was like our Moses character leading the slaves out of Egypt, and the Cyclos were the Egyptians. It was basically the same story. I don't think L. Ron Hubbard has original ideas. He just writes like recycled bullshit. So eat a bag, L. Ron Hubbard.
Good, and you're not even in it.
Let my people go.
Final review. Fight.
Hey, let's see what the other guys are saying about this. Going over to Rotten Tomatoes. The critics, operating on a binary system of was this good or was this bad? This has to be our lowest critic score. This is a 3%.
I've never seen anything like it.
Who gave this a thumbs up? What are those 3%?
I want to see those 3%.
Who are those 3% that gave this a thumbs up? Because that is atrocious.
Scientologists, maybe.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh my God.
Honestly.
Okay. Do your own research on this one because there's so much to dive into. But Rotten Tomatoes, I believe, got in hot water for just taking paid reviews and blah, 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 and pumping up scores or whatever. Do your research. Check it out if Scientologists actually bumped up the score.
Would not surprise me.
Now, the fans, on the other hand, they're only giving this a 12. So this is rotten, back to back.
Is bad. I'm honestly trying to find the people who gave it a decent critic review. Bob Graham says, is it worth seeing once? Sure. And gave it a tomato. That's it.
I can't trust these guys.
Scott Chitwood of IGN Movies says, overall, I liked the movie. I thought it was good, mindless sci-fi flick with a lot of effects and actions. Who are you, Scott Chitwood? Piece of shit. On Metacritic, the critics give it a 9 out of 100.
That's not a 9 out of 10.
No, so we'll call it a 0.9 out of 10. And the people give it a 1.8 out of 10, which is surprisingly high.
And now for the Cyclo,
our alien, our out of this galaxy.
Gives a shit, dude.
IMDb gives it 2.5.
Hey,
so there it is.
Even though we fell apart, we still nailed it. We still stuck on the same page there. Freakishly good.
We fall apart together.
Now, before we get into laughable log lines here,
we have one more thing to do.
This actually, this lost some points somewhere. So that's the problem with getting our ratings from these user voter based outlets like Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic, because the users, I believe, can vote on their score at any point. So when I originally note this down, the average score was a 13.8, measuring our Rotten Tomatoes critics fan, Metacritic's critics fans, and the IMDb. Somewhere along the line, it actually lost 0.4 points from when I originally noted it down on our schedule. Someone found this movie and hated it, just like we did.
Good for them. We should create a Rotten Tomatoes profile so that we can put our ratings in.
With all that bullshit aside, Nick, can you answer this real quick? Did this movie deserve to flop? Yes or yes?
Every bit. I mean, this. Yeah. Just yeah. I'll give you the one word answer.
Yikes.
All right, James. What do you say? I give you my laughable log lines and my final thoughts, and we can start wrapping this bad boy up.
Hit me.
My laughable log line is, and you can read it here. It's right in front of you on the sheet. My laughable log line is, I don't know. There's aliens and people and gold, and then the aliens can't deal with the air or something, and the dome explodes. As far as my popcorn points, dude, I like, make no mistake. This is a bad movie. The question is how bad. So my lowest, and I can't go any lower than Maximum Overdrive. I married myself
literally
to that,
you can't go
being
lower.
The lowest. That's a 0. It's a 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. You could extend it out 1,000,000 decimal points and it's still a 0. Battlefield Earth, I mean, at least they attempted to have somewhat of a script and some characters and put a little bit of thought and effort, but then it got hijacked by the Church of Science. So 0.3. 0.3 is kind of where I'm landing here for all the reasons. For all the reasons we talked about, man. I mean, it's bad. It's bad in the sense of like the production quality is bad, the script is bad, the direction is bad, the cinematography is bad. I don't really quite understand anyone's motivations in this. I don't understand the universe or the background. The 0.3, I think, is just maybe for some of the costumes were a little fun and funky. You get a little bit of that. Dude, I don't know. Everybody here listen to the plot talk. We don't know what the hell was going on. This was a mess from start to finish. Similar to Maximum Overdrive, you give the writer of something too much power and they just turn it into a mess. It's the same with Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard. He thought he had good ideas. He doesn't. This is trash, dude. And honestly, I mean, if you want to talk about L. Ron Hubbard creating a religion, it really, what I said about my sarcastic selling point, it's not original, and it's like, oh, it's an adaptation of an existing story, but it's just done so poorly. It's a bad movie. Go see it though. It's hilarious. Laugh at it, make fun of it. But 0.3, man, I don't know. I'm right in line with the Rotten Tomatoes critics, which I usually am not, but here I am.
Well, let me hit you with my laughable log line for Battlefield Earth.
Yes.
An ugly ass alien race has enslaved humanity in the year 3000 to mine for gold in them Earth hills, and the alien head of security maniacally laughs his way towards a gold heist in order to pay his way off of his earthbound Paul Blart Mall Club corn job. I don't fucking know. 0.7 popcorn points. This is cremated corn. I didn't really think we were going to get into the zero so often this year. This is quite disappointing. I guess that's what we signed up for when we Googled worst movies ever and added them to the top of the list of movies we need to watch in the year 2023. My God, what a mistake that was. This movie's bad. It explains its way throughout the entire thing. The bad guys are super generic. I don't understand their evil plot. Even the villains have generic plots. Everybody maniacally laughs at everybody. It just makes zero sense. And just learning about the background of how this movie was made with the Church of Scientology and John Travolta and L. Ron Hubbard and the embezzlement.
So much embezzling.
It dips into that, like, I hate the people that made this. That's what gets you a below 1. Like, that's what really is the X factor of, wow, this movie was horrible, and its execution and its backstory of how it came to be is also a tragedy. I think the director, the cinematographer, the music score, whoever did the music composition, I think everybody thought this was going to be an epic Avatar, Star Wars, fun thrill ride, and it just wasn't. It's like when your principal comes out at the pep rally and is doing the latest TikTok dance to the latest song that just dropped of your favorite rapper, and they think this is so sick and they're going to relate to the fellow kids, and it just ain't it.
It ain't it, dog. It ain't it. Yeah, this movie is skin deep. Like there's nothing going on beyond what you're seeing on the screen. Like just looking at it, it's just like it ain't that deep, guy.
This is notoriously known as a bad movie because that's exactly what it is.
It deserves every insult that gets hurled its way.
This is quite unfortunate coming off of our highest reviewed movie last week of Mad Max Fury Road. And we literally came crashing down to earth amongst this battlefield of Scientology shit show.
Well, I'm glad we got it out of the way, and I'm glad I never have to watch that movie again.
I will never watch this movie. I'm upset that I wasted $3.99 to rent this movie from iTunes, Apple Movies. I need to get your torrent website. I mean, I need to get your legitimate movie watching websites. Hey, Franchise Pictures, I want my $4 back because this was a waste. This was a waste of money. It was a waste of time. And on everybody's part on the back end, it was a waste of effort. And John Travolta, your acting was horrendous. Everybody in this movie seemed like they were acting in a Shakespeare play. There was so much influctuation of voices, and oh, I'm doing evil things.
Attention! This is Terrell, your chief of security. Exterminate all man animals at will. And happy hunting!
Oh my God. It sucks nuts. And that's it.
L. Ron Hubbard makes movies as well as he creates religions. Like shit.
L. Ron roasted.
L. Ron fuckered.
Well, Jesus Christ, this was...
No, don't say Jesus Christ. Say Zorb.
Sorry. Hail Xenon, girl of the 21st century. I'm not happy that we did this, but I'm happy that it's out of the way.
I wouldn't have done it with anyone else, buddy.
Hell yeah, brother. This is all going to be in the rear view. I think we need a break after this movie. I know we just took a break.
Give me a week, dude. I got to decompress from this one.
After this 40-40 offender, I think I need to reevaluate my life and what I'm doing on this podcast. Holy crap, was this a horrible movie? You don't even need to go see it. Do not support this movie. Do not support Scientology or L. Ron Hubbard or John Travolta or any of their fucked up agendas. For now, we are going to take a week off. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. We're heading gone. When we return, we're going to be watching a movie that features a snowman.
It's Christmas season, my friend. When we get back,
it'll be holly jolly season. I'm excited for it. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you then. Please follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Just Play a Podcast. Please follow us on X Gon' Give It to You Twitter at Just Play a Pod. We'll see you next time. And remember, if you think you're going to make a super sick Star Wars Avatar movie and it's based on an L. Ron Hubbard joint, you better just jump ship, because this shit is going to explode, just like the radioactive atmosphere for the Cyclos.
Hail Zorb. Once you use the phrase piece of cake, you no longer chant grunts.
Piece of cake, piece of cake, piece of cake, piece of cake.
What the f***? Battlefield Earth.